Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And our first question this week comes from It's Max in the Box, who asks, how do you feel about so many people being interested in your opinions on such a diversity of topics? I think it's great because it's a nice premise for a video series. Cranes Not Skyhooks, good username, asks, hi Steve, why do you think that Angel is a better show than Buffy the Vampire Slayer? I had very low expectations for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I was blown away by how a cheesy high school show morphed into such a mature and complex series. I was really looking forward to Angel because it was darker in tone and had a much more interesting premise. But after watching the entire series, I came away disappointed because it never reached the depth that Buffy had, even though it was an adult show. The reason I love Angel so much is because I think the character of Angel is just so compelling to me, and is such a tragic character. And Buffy certainly had elements of tragedy of her own. Buffy had sort of the reluctant hero type, where she had sort of been just chosen by this supernatural force to have these powers and fight these monsters, and there's definitely an element of tragedy in that, you know, that she doesn't have the option of having a normal life. She is always going to be called to this life of fighting and heroism and danger because it's what someone else chose her to do, and she has no control over it. Whereas Angel is more of a personal level of tragedy. Angel is someone who's trying to be heroic and feels compelled to be heroic, not just because it's the right thing to do and he wants to help people and he has the ability to do it, but because he feels he has to atone for something. He feels like he's done something wrong in his life, and he has. You know, he's committed these horrible evils in his previous life, and he wants to atone for that. And that need for atonement and that feeling of guilt and that feeling of unworthiness blinds him to the fact that he is now a good person, you know, that he is a hero, that he is this person that he is constantly trying to be and constantly sort of chastising himself for not being, that he is that person. And he can't see it because of his guilt and because of his past, and there's something about that that's really compelling to me. And also, again, both shows are really good at turning their status quo upside down and shaking things up and moving their characters around. But Angel, to me, made that into a science, where enemies became friends and friends became enemies and then became friends again, and the setting of the show changed, first from the detective agency in the first season to the hotel in the middle part of the show, and then to the law agency, the evil law firm in the final season. Just a show that is willing to shake things up like that. Zents29, what is your opinion of Sam Harris's arguments saying that we don't actually have free will? The question only applies if you've heard them, obviously. Sounds like bullshit to me. Just for one example, he says that the fact that a machine can tell when your brain has made a choice before your physical body reacts, that's a small amount of evidence that we don't have free will. Yeah, as I understand it, Harris's argument, and I haven't read his book, but I've read other things that he's written on the subject. Harris's argument, as I understand it, is that free will is an illusion because the thoughts that we have, where we're making choices, just sort of appear in our brains the same way that sensory input does. You know, like if you touch something hot, you feel pain. That impulse appears in your brain. And if you are trying to decide whether you should go see a movie or stay in and watch something on TV, when you make that decision, that thought just sort of appears in your brain, and we can't really trace where it comes from. You just sort of you look at the two options and then you say, oh, I'm going to go out and see a movie, and yeah, the thoughts appear in your brain, and they can be detected chemically or medically before you are even consciously aware of them. They just sort of pop. You know, it's like your brain just sort of decides on its own without any conscious input from you. And I'm not really sure how. I mean, I'm not qualified scientifically or philosophically really to argue about something like that. That's really like heady territory for me. I do know, I've heard other people say, I think Richard Dawkins has said this, that if if we don't have free will, if we actually don't have free will for whatever reason, the illusion of free will is so powerful and so convincing that in our everyday lives, practically speaking, it really doesn't make a difference. So, and that's kind of the way I treat the question. I do think it's a fascinating question. I do think it does have very potent implications for the nature of ourselves and of our lives and of our choices. And I mean, it has profound implications for the nature of just what it is to be human, to be sentient. But on a day-to-day basis, the illusion of free will, if it is indeed an illusion, is so perfect and powerful and overwhelming that it really doesn't make a difference. We behave as though we do have free will. We act as though we have free will. We treat each other and hold each other responsible for our actions as though we have free will. So for all intents and purposes, we have free will. And anything else is a fascinating academic philosophical exercise, but really, practically speaking, nothing more than that. Firefly 4F4. Okay, let's leave Batman and Robin aside since you covered that one. What are the worst films you've ever paid to see in a theater? In reverse order, my top three are Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, The Last Airbender, and Battlefield Earth. I'm actually ashamed about that last one. Oh, I've paid to see lots of shitty movies in the theater. A couple that come to mind just off the top of my head. Lost in Space. The Lost in Space movie was fucking terrible, and I actually went to see it with a friend intentionally, knowing it was bad because I wanted to sit in the back row and make fun of it, and then my friend didn't have the balls to miss it with me, even though we were like the only people in the theater. Terrible movie. Terrible, terrible movie. What else? Star Wars Episode 2 I've mentioned a few times. That was god-awful. There was a really terrible movie I went to see, and I think the reason I went to see it was because the girl I was dating at the time wanted to see it, and I didn't really have any interest in it. But it was a movie starring Rufus Sewell and Jimmy Smits, and I think Kim Basinger might have been in it. It was called Bless the Child, and it was just appallingly bad. It was awful. It was so, so terrible. And I hated every second of it. It was so stupid and boring and just rotten. Bless the Child. That's got to be one of the worst ones I've ever seen. And I saw Star Trek Nemesis in the theaters, and that's a fucking piece of dog shit. Hold Fast 1979. As of right now, you have 961,451 views on your channel. What are you planning to do in order to celebrate 1 million views? Maybe a wrestling match with Stuffy, a 5 Stupid Things, about 1 million views, a Stella Artois shower? Yeah, I am almost to 1 million views. I checked it this morning and it was at 980 something thousand. So any day now I'm gonna cross 1 million views. That's pretty cool, actually. That's pretty cool. As for what I'm gonna do to celebrate, probably nothing. I made a video about my 5,000 subscriber, and I at least made mention of, you know, little milestones like the 50th episode of 5 Stupid Things, or the 50th Riffing on Mail Call that I did. You know, so marking the milestones is fun sometimes. I don't know if I'm going to do anything for 1 million views or not. I'm not really sure. No Stella Artois shower. I've moved past my Stella Artois phase. I'm into a Yingling phase now. Yingling. Maybe a Yingling shower. Maybe I'll shake up a whole bunch of Yingling, and maybe I'll have the Neon Real Gang pour some Yingling over my head or something. I don't know. Maybe an orgy. JTH112. Dear Steve, Beatles or Stones? Stones. I would prefer not to have to choose. Just like with Batman and Superman. I would prefer not to have to choose, because I love them both. But Stones, if I have to pick one. Frizzard. What experience in your life brought you to have such a pro-gay stance? The experience of having been raised to be a person possessing a modicum of decency. There was no real experience that, I mean, I was not always like a hugely pro-gay person. I mean, I was raised in a small town, like a tiny town, like I'm talking like a population of like 300 people, a tiny little town in Washington County, where I still am, in Western Maryland, and it was not, when I was growing up there, and it still is not, a particularly liberal, tolerant, open-minded community. I think the whole time I went to high school there, for instance, I think there might have been 2 or 3 black students the whole time, and most of them were transplants that were going to our high school because they were staying at like a local boys' home. They had come from Baltimore or D.C. or and they had had trouble. They'd been in trouble with the law, or they had had parental issues where they had been taken away, and and our high school was the closest public school, so that's where they went to school. So not a whole lot of racial tolerance, not very much, not very much sexual tolerance. There were people I went to high school with who kept their sexuality a secret for the whole time that they were there, and then as soon as they were out of high school and they moved out of Clear Spring, they came out and they went on to live relatively open and happy lives. I mean, it's one of those places, and that's where I was brought up, and those are the attitudes that I had for a long time. Before I learned to look at things and make up my own mind, before I started to question, like, what's so wrong with gay people? What's so wrong with being gay? What's so bad about it? Who is it hurting? Who's to say that being straight is the standard, and that's the thing that you shouldn't deviate from, and that's the thing that you should aspire to? I mean, when I started asking myself those questions is when I started to realize that it just made no sense to have anything against gay people. And then when you start to get out into the world and you get a job, or you go to college and you actually get a chance to meet some gay people and make friends and realize that, oh my God, they're normal people. They're no different than we are, And after you have that revelation, you feel so bad that you had to have it. You feel like, oh my God, what a prick I am to think like, oh, they're normal people. That's such a horrible thing to say. But it's a point that I think you have to get to if you're raised in that milieu where gay people are bad. And so I had to go through that, and I was, like I say, I'm not kidding. I was raised to be a decent person. I wasn't raised explicitly to be pro-gay. In fact, my parents aren't like pro-gay people. My parents don't stand up for same-sex marriage or anything like that. My parents, especially my dad, who I love and I admire greatly, he's not above saying faggot or making fun of gay people or whatever, or like insinuating that a less than masculine person might be gay, or that gay people are like just foppy feminine people, and he's not that's just part of his attitude. But what I realized is that when they did raise me to respect people in general, or to be myself and to allow other people to be themselves, even though they may not have realized it, they were instilling in me the values that eventually led me to say that it's wrong to mistreat gay people, or to view gay people as different than anybody else. So yeah, just upbringing, I would say. But upbringing in a way that my parents probably didn't intend or didn't anticipate, but that I appreciate nonetheless. Keith McFrenzy, who do you think is the sexiest character in movie TV show history? I don't mean the actress portraying them. And now for something completely different, do you like Monty Python? Well, to take the second question first, yeah, I do like Monty Python, but I'm not in like with Monty Python. I haven't seen a lot of it. I've seen the movies, I've seen Holy Grail, and I've seen Life of Brian, and I've seen Meaning of Life, and I like them all. I think they're all really funny. I haven't seen a whole lot of Monty Python's Flying Circus. I've seen a few episodes. I remember I went to stay with a friend of mine, my buddy Varjak, a long time ago, and one of the times I stayed with him, we watched some Python, and I thought it was great. And it's interesting, when I first watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was that funny. I mean, I didn't hate it. I just didn't laugh. And then I saw it again a little while after that, and it just killed me. I mean, it was just incredibly funny. It was riotous. So, and I've had that experience with a couple of things, of comedy things. It's like you need a second to sort of tune into it, where you watch it the first time and you're just like, whatever. Then you watch it the second time and it just kills you. And that was how Monty Python was like. As for sexiest character in TV or movies, obviously Chloe from Smallville. I mentioned that before. Both because I have a crush on Allison Mack and because she was just a really interesting, great character. And what the fuck was Clark's problem? How is he so hung up on boring-ass Lana? Who doesn't even like him, isn't even interested in him. And there's Chloe right there, this perfect little person. Ah, Clark. You know, that's why he needed the glasses, because it's like, Chloe's right there, dude. What are you doing? And other characters, it's tough to pick. I think the I mean, it's a really recent one, so maybe it's not a fair pick. But the portrayal of Irene Adler in the recent modernization of Sherlock Holmes, the Benedict Cumberbatch, Martin Freeman version, their adaptation of A Scandal in Bohemia, which they called A Scandal in Belgravia for the show, and that version of Irene Adler I thought was great and really sexy, and just a great character altogether. And her chemistry with Holmes was just great, and that was such a great episode. And fuck, if I'm going, as long as we're talking about sexy character, Benedict Cumberbatch's Holmes is a sexy bitch too. I mean, come on. That's a great version of Sherlock Holmes. That's a really great version of Sherlock Holmes. Both as a Holmes fan and as a dude, a straight dude, who is comfortable enough in his sexuality to admit that that version of Holmes is a sexy bitch. I'm not afraid to say it. JeffTheFish.com. Steve, did you ever have a segment on current TV? Lee keeps saying you did. Fess up, bro. Lee's full of shit. No, I've never had a segment on current TV. I've never been on current TV, to my knowledge. If I have, they owe me some money, because I've never appeared on current TV. I've never signed any sort of release to allow them to use anything of mine on current TV. So current TV, or I suppose Al Jazeera now, owes me some money if I've been on current TV. No, I've never been on current TV. I have been on Al Jazeera though, but not the English version, the Arabic terrorist version. I'm on that all the time. Okay, that was the last question. The shout out this week goes to Wise Apple, aka Godless Hausfrau. She is amazing and has an awesome channel. And if you are not watching her stuff or subscribe to her channel, you should totally subscribe to Wise Apple, aka Godless Hausfrau. She makes great videos. I watched a couple of hers. I caught up a little bit on her stuff this morning as I was preparing to shoot this, and she did a video about, this is really what sealed the deal when I decided I was going to give her the shout out. She said, she made a video about the Thunderfoot, Matt Dillahunty bullshit that I couldn't really care less about. But, you know, she's a really sharp commentator, and she has a way of just sort of seeing things clearly and lucidly and cutting through bullshit and calling bullshit where she sees it, whether you agree with her or not. And it's a really powerful, really great quality that she has. And and not only that, but she's funny. She's really funny. You know, she told a joke that just had me fall out of my chair, about how Matt Dillahunty in the video she was talking about mentioned sex parties. And she said she doesn't, you know, she's not so much concerned about sex parties. She just is worried that a rapist will throw a surprise sex party. Oh, what a great joke. And then she also does an impression of Rebecca Watson that is really, really funny. So, Wise Apple, subscribe to her. Her channel is awesome, and she deserves your attention if she's not getting it at the moment. Now, that is it. That is all the attention you have to pay to me now. That's the end of yet another episode of You Had to Ask. I'll be back to do this again next week, assuming, of course, that you ask me lots of questions that I can answer in the next video. For me to do this, you have to ask. So if you have a question to ask me about anything at all, current events, politics, religion, atheism, Christianity, movies, TV shows, comic books, personal stuff, whatever you want to know, ask me. Leave a comment on this video, ask me a question, and I will answer as many of them, you know, as I feel like, in the next episode of this series. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.